Hi, everyone, and welcome along to the Ergonomically Speaking podcast, the podcast that aims to help you reduce and even eliminate work related discomfort. I'm your host, Neve Pentney of Boyne Ergonomics. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you're able to take away some useful practical advice from this podcast to help you reduce your own risk of discomfort at the workplace or help manage the risks among the people that you might be responsible for. So now that we know why we're here, let's get started. Hello, and welcome along to another episode of the Ergonomically Speaking podcast with myself, Neve Pentney of Boyne Ergonomics. In the last episode, I was outlining to you what the ideal or optimum computer workstation posture and positioning is to help keep your muscles relaxed, to reduce the risk of discomfort, stress, fatigue, aches and pains. But in reality, those postures cannot be achieved if you don't have the right equipment for you and for what you do. So that is what we're going to talk about today in this episode. I'm going to have a look at the equipment that you need to be able to boost your computer workstation to keep you healthy and productive this year. I know it's been unbelievably nearly 5 years since a really big shift for home working. And prior to that, it just wasn't something we really had to think about. We went into our offices, everything was there, the chair, the desk, the screen, all the bits and bobs. And even though it's been so long, there are still so many people I meet doing assessments that don't know what they need or don't have what they need to be able to get into a really good work position. So I'm going to talk you through it now step by step. So if we are looking at your computer workstation, the first thing we need to make sure is that you have the right foundation, your furniture. Because without the right furniture, everything else is going to be thrown off a little bit. So let's start with the desk. And I know this may seem really obvious. A desk is a desk is a desk. But actually, in particular, when it comes to people working from home, no, not every desk or every table or every surface is actually suitable to be used as a computer workstation. Some surfaces, in particular ones that have not been designed to be a computer desk, for example, dressers and side tables, they can be too shallow. If we look at dining tables, well, some dining tables have support beams or legs if it's a drop leaf table underneath, drawers underneath if it's some of the other kind of desks we can see, like the homework style desks. And these features will negatively impact posture and positioning. Some of them are too high to use seated, but too low to use standing. So the desk you're using, to be able to at least start to get a good position, you need to make sure, one, that it's stable. So it's not going to wobble or shake when you type because that's so annoying, that the legs are firmly attached and it can take the weight of your equipment. Secondly, it needs to have appropriate depth. What I mean by that is it should be deep enough that when you're sitting in your standard comfortable typing position with your back against your chair and your keyboard and mouse within easy reach, you should be able to put your hand out in front of you and just tip the screen. So if you cannot do that, your desk is too shallow. The desk should also be wide enough to fit your screens in the appropriate configuration. Now, that's easy if you're just using a laptop on a stand, but it gets a little bit more difficult if you've got the laptop and a screen, or two screens, or three screens. You need to make sure it's wide enough to safely hold those screens. And also wide enough that you have room for your legs underneath. If your desk is too shallow, you're not going to be able to move your legs around. You're not going to be able to stretch your feet out, which we will do. We all do it. But if your desk is too shallow, you're not going to be able to stretch your feet out without coming into contact with a barrier or a wall. The desk, thinking of the leg room, should also have enough clearance space underneath for your thighs. So that means that when you are seated at the right height for the desk, so elbows level, as you remember from the last episode, there should be nothing in contact with the top of your thighs. So space between you and the underside of the desk. And this can be an issue with some dining tables and some of the kind of homework style desks that have drawers or shelving underneath. People end up sitting too low for the desk simply because there's not enough room for their thighs underneath. So that is your desk. So we want it stable, deep enough, wide enough, and also clearance space for your thighs underneath. The next foundation is your chair. So ideally and legally, depending on where you're based, if you are working at a computer workstation, you should have a chair that can be adjusted in height with a height adjustable back support and a tilt adjustable backrest on wheels, so 5-spoke base with your casters and a swivel seat. This is the absolute basic level of adjustment that your office chair should have. And if it's missing those adjustments, well, it's very likely you're going to have to supplement it with some extra cushions, either to give you a boost of height if you need it, or to give you extra support for your back, particularly your lumbar spine. And I do understand that not everybody can accommodate an office chair in their workspace at home, usually due to space restrictions or, they're in a shared space that lots of people use. That's okay. You can adjust seating with additional cushions and support to try and get you into better position. It won't be as supportive as if you had an adjustable chair, but it can be done. It can be done. But ideally, you want your chair to have your 5-spoke base with your casters, height adjustable seat that swivels around, and that's so you can move the chair easily and get in and out of it easily. You should have a backrest or a back support on the backrest that can be adjusted in height, and you should be able to change the angle of recline of the backrest to ensure that you can get to the right height for your desk and that your back is supported when you're in the typing position. Those are what I call the workstation foundations. If you can get those right and get into a good position, a good relationship between yourself, the chair, and the desk, then it's much easier to bring into play what we're going to talk about next. If we can't, it's going to become a little bit more difficult. You will probably be seated too low for your desk. You're probably not going to have enough support for your back. But you can make it work with additional cushions and support. The harder thing to adapt, to be honest, is the desk. Most desks are desks. One adaptation that we can make sometimes, depending on the desk, is that even if there is a drawer underneath the work surface, well, sometimes we can take that drawer out and then we can play around with the seat height a little bit. But if we can get a really good suitable desk, good suitable chair, we can build from there. If you don't have those, I definitely, at this point, if home working is going to continue to be in your future, I would really consider shopping around and making that investment if you can. Or reach out to your employer and see if it's something they will cover under their home or hybrid working policy. So that's the foundation. The next thing I want to look at is your peripherals. So I'm talking about peripherals. What I mean is your screen, your keyboard, and your mouse, the extra bits of equipment that we need. So we look at the screen first. No matter what screen you are using, whether it is the laptop or whether you have external monitors, they should be positioned arm's length from you and at a height that lets you look at the screen while your head is facing forward, ear over shoulder. Now, the general guideline, if you don't wear glasses or if you wear single vision glasses, is that when you're seated upright, back against the chair, ear over shoulder, looking straight ahead, your eye line should rest around the top third of your screen. This height will be slightly lower if you wear varifocals. So you may need to play around with the height a little bit to get the screen into the appropriate part of your lenses so you can read it comfortably without tilting your head back and looking down. But rule of thumb, your screen height should allow you to sit in your chair, ear over shoulder, and look straight ahead. And if your only screen is a laptop or a tablet, you can still achieve this with a good stand, a riser or a stand to elevate them to the appropriate height. possible, I definitely recommend getting a height adjustable stand. Some of them have one height setting and it just doesn't work for everybody. So I would try and get a height adjustable stand. If you're using two screens, how you position them is totally based on how you use them. Um, I use two screens. I use one for about 70% of my work. That's positioned in front of me. I use a second screen as a support screen, and that's positioned to my right, angled slightly inwards. If you do have the second screen as a support screen, I would recommend putting it on your dominant side if you can. If you use both 50-50, well, I would put them both in front of you with the screens side by side, angled inwards, and you positioned in the middle between them. And if you've got three screens, well, then you should have one directly in front of you and another screen either side of it, slightly angled inwards looking at you. But regardless of how many screens, or whether it's a laptop or whether it's an external monitor, it needs to be the right height. So use laptop stands, use monitor stands to get them to the right height. The next set of peripherals are your keyboard and mouse, your inputting devices. So, usually and hopefully, when you're in the office, your workstation will come with a screen, keyboard, and mouse. Hopefully. But this is definitely not a given when you're working from home. If you're using a laptop and a tablet, and you do actually elevate it to the right height for you so you can look at it sitting back in your chair, you're going to realize then it's no longer practical to try and use the laptop keyboard or touchpad because they're going to be too high. They're going to be too far away from you. So you need a separate keyboard and mouse to let you sit back in your chair, keyboard close, mouse close, shoulders relaxed, looking straight ahead. Now, there is a wide range of keyboard and mouse devices, and the right one is whatever one you find comfortable, whatever one you can use comfortably and efficiently and will connect to your devices. That's the right keyboard and mouse for you. These essential. So whether it's a laptop stand, whether it's a monitor, keyboard, mouse, they will let you, hopefully in combination with your desk and your chair, get into a good position, reducing the risk of musculoskeletal strain and injury. But there are add-ons. There are add-ons based on your stature, based on your needs, based on your job that can come in really, really useful. So additional pieces of equipment, if you're working from home in particular, should have a wireless headset or earbuds at least, because most of us when we're working from home are going to have to log on to virtual meetings at some point. And for some people, it's a lot of them. So these virtual meetings really tie people to the desk. But if you can go wireless through buds or headsets, it just means that even if you are stuck on a call that's longer than 45 minutes or you have loads of calls, you can turn off the screen just for a minute or two and get up and move around for 1-2 minutes, get a boost of circulation, give your eyes a rest, come back to the screen, turn your camera back on. It gives you a little bit of freedom, little bit of flexibility that you're not tied to the desk for all of your meetings. The next accessory that a lot of people need and don't realize they need it is actually a footrest. So if you are seated at the right height for your desk, which we know now is elbows level with the work surface, and you cannot plant your feet on the floor, you need a footrest. If you're at that height and you feel a lot of pressure from the seat on the underside of your thighs, you need a footrest. And also, if you use a standing desk, a footrest can come in really handy. I use one when I'm standing. I keep it quite close to my standing position, and as I'm working away, I'll put one foot up on the footrest, take it down, put the other foot up. It just gives me a little bit of movement, can shift my weight, but keeps my hips balanced, stops me from locking my knees and putting my weight through one leg. And if you're at home, it doesn't have to be your traditional office footrest. It could be a foam roller. It could be a yoga block. It could be one of the little steps that kids use when they're washing their hands. As long as it's not so high that it pushes your knees up higher than your hips. Once it's solid, it can be a footrest. Additional back supports are really useful. If you're using a chair, like a dining chair or one where the back is fixed in position, an extra foam back support can be a way of adapting it to give you a little bit of extra support in the back. Or even if you are using a DSE compliant chair, but you still feel that you need a little bit of extra support, phone back support is a great way to go. They clip onto the back and they can be moved around. You want to pop it in the car when you're driving or pop it on the sofa when you're watching TV. Really, really useful. And another piece of equipment that I use a lot is a mobile phone stand. So I, like most people, use a laptop, use a screen, but I use my phone a lot for work, even when I'm at the desk. So I have my phone on a little height adjustable stand. Now, it doesn't bring it up to eye level, it's not that tall, but it gives it a nice boost of height, and I angle it upwards. So at least I'm not looking down whenever I'm checking my phone. I find that really, really useful. Another useful piece, although not as common as pre COVID, is a document holder or writing slope, depending on which brand you're looking at. Basically, that is a piece of equipment that is positioned between your keyboard and your screen, angled upwards, put your documents on it. So it's really useful if you are taking information from the paper to put it onto screen, or you're comparing information between the screen and the piece of paper. So it's really, really useful for positioning your documents when you're reading or writing in a way that reduces the amount of time or the frequency with which you look down. You're not looking down. It also stops that habit that people have of putting paper documents in front of them and pushing the keyboard away. So they're looking down at the documents and leaning forward to the keyboard. So a writing slope just encourages really nice positioning of paperwork. Now, not as common, but there's definitely a lot of fields where paper is still a big part of the job. So it can be very useful if paper plays a big role in your day. However, they are usually only suitable for desks that are about 70 centimeters plus deep, because they do take up a lot of space. So it wouldn't work on a shallow desk. And another very useful piece of equipment when you're working from home is additional lighting. So working at home, and I've covered this in depth in previous blog posts and previous podcast episodes, but just to remind you that if you're working from home, it can mean that you're working in an area with lower or with fluctuating light levels. So make sure you have the additional lighting you need, your ambient lighting, your ceiling lighting, your desk lighting. You can adjust it as you need to during the day to make sure you have enough light to do your job. And another thing, finally, that I find so nice for keeping your workstation personalized and, you know, a nice place to be. Like if you like being at your desk, you will be more productive. You'll be happier when you're there. So if you are fortunate enough to have a dedicated computer workstation or work area, add things you like. Make it yours. So add what I've done. I have a desk mat in one of my favorite colors. I've added pictures around me on the walls, not on my desk because I do like to keep a clutter free desk, but I've got pictures around me on the walls that make me feel happy. And what I also use a lot is I have a diffuser that I use to make my area smell nice. Depending on the time of year or how I want to feel, I will use different oils to make my work area smell nice and make me feel comfortable or make me feel energized, whatever it is that I need to feel. So don't be afraid if you can and you're fortunate enough to have a dedicated space to personalize it. It doesn't need to be sterile. Make it somewhere you want to be, especially because now a lot of work areas, offices have brought in hot desking, which means you can't really personalize your desk. The desks have to be kept clear because somebody else is going to be using it the next day. So if you can, definitely personalize your workstation at home to make it feel like a nicer place to be. Every computer user, I feel, should have your essentials, your foundation, your good chair and your desk, and your peripherals. These are the basics that help prevent adverse postures and reduce the risk of musculoskeletal injury. As always, though, I do want to add there's no piece of equipment that replaces the benefit of regular movement. You knew I was going to say it. This is why I didn't include a sit stand desk in this as an essential, or the adapters. Yes, they're useful, but for the general population, there is much greater benefit to your overall health to be leaving the workstation. Remove yourself from your chair, your desk, your keyboard, your screen, walk around, grab a drink, come back. Take a break from static postures and boost your circulation and boost your respiratory system. Use a break reminder app if needed. Just remember, good posture, good equipment, frequent breaks, nice personalized work area will keep you happy, healthy, and productive this year. So that's all in that area. As always, in the show notes, there will be a link to the blog post related to this episode, which will have images if you want to check them out. I will also have my social media details in the show notes if you want to give me a follow. And until the next time, everybody, stay well.